Opera SM here with a standard cycling deck tech, and I'll do a playthrough as well. This is a Sarkhan Unbroken deck, cycling based around God Eternal Kefnet. I think I recorded one other video with a different variant of this, but we've got some significant improvements that we figured out brainstorming in the From the Ashes Slack, a huge breakthrough from Lars 70, which we'll get to in a bit. But God Eternal Kefnet is a 6/7 flying legendary creature for 17 zombie god. Whenever you draw a spell, copy that card. That copy gains half its mana. When this creature is exiled or dies, if 3 or more cards named God Eternal Kefnet are in your graveyard, return it to the battlefield and reinforce it 3 times and exile all cards named God Eternal Kefnet to your graveyard. So this as our main engine, we're going to be running a lot of spells in this deck, and this is our mana engine and also a card draw engine. So when we draw a spell, we get to basically draw a second spell or get a copy of it and give it half mana. So that's going to be great with all of our cycling spells. That synergizes super well with Serum Powder, its overflow ability of discard all cards without mana from your hand, then draw that many cards. Those cards gain half their mana. So as we're cycling and we have cards without mana in them, when we draw our 5th or 6th spell, we are able to just kind of wheel away all the cards in hand that didn't have mana and then draw into ones with half mana. The big breakthrough we found recently, Lars 70 realized Gather the Pack just synergizes super duper well with God Eternal Kefnet. So this spell for 6 moves the next creature card from your library to your hand. We're only running one creature in this deck, God Eternal Kefnet, so we'll always get Kefnet. And then we destroy the next 4 creatures in our library. We can sometimes get a second creature, but that synergizes so well with Kefnet because we'll get 1 to our hand and then 4 to our graveyard. Then our next turn, we can just exile that God Eternal Kefnet from our hand and then get a Kefnet into play that's reinforced 3 times. So that is a fantastic kind of other tutor for Kefnet, and then a way to get a super reinforced Kefnet stack into play quickly, which will then let us start cycling and get our cycle engine online. So those are our 3 big cards for that. I have Stitch in Time in here because this will actually allow you to get some extra swaps here. This could be a different flex spell slot if you like, but I really like Stitch in Time because when you have Kefnet in play and then you draw into a Serum Powder that overflows, you'll draw the card, it will get half mana, then it will get half mana off the Serum Powder. So you can actually draw into a Stitch in Time that will get full mana and then another with half mana, and a Gather the Pack with full mana and another one with half mana, and then also all your cycling spells. You will be with that interaction between Kefnet and Serum Powder, ways to gain you a ton of mana. So the rest of our spells in here are cycling cards. We have, again, we want a lot of spells. So we have Wilt, which can destroy an artifact or enchantment support, cycling 2. Barrier Breach, exile opposing enchantment support, then exile the first opposing enchantment creature, also cycling 2. Shredded Sails, destroy an opposing artifact support, and if you can't, deal 4 damage to the first opposing creature with flying with cycling 2. So those 3 cards, well, we're not going to cast them a lot, actually do a lot to hedge against artifacts and enchantments, and even a little damage against flyers with Shred Sails, which is great. Go for Blood is a great addition we get with red because with Kefnet being reinforced 4 times or 3 times, it's going to be a pretty beefy creature. So if while this has cycling 3, which is less ideal than cycling 2, it does allow us to, if we need to, an opponent has a big nasty thing out, we can just fight that creature and probably kill it with our Kefnet if we need to cast it. So this is great to have a removal option that also has cycling. Previous versions of this I used Zenith Flare because we just needed a good removal and didn't have the options if we weren't in red. But when we have a big reinforced creature, Go for Blood's actually pretty good. Boon of the Wishgiver has cycling 2. It also draws 4 cards, which is huge. So with this engine, what you can do if you have extra swaps, if you ever run out of mana in hand, or Boon is the last card you want to save one in your hand when you're cycling. With cycling, what you can do is just exile down to everything else except for Boon, then cast the Boon, and then draw 4 cards. Likely you'll have some spell cards, so get copied up to 6 cards and several mana to keep the loop going again. Since we only have 7 spell slots here, we need to run, and we don't want to run another creature because we want to be guaranteed to hit Kefnet with Gather the Pack. Omen of the Seas is a great support that cycles, has cycling 2. Then when you draw a card, reinforce this support. At the end of your turn, if this support has 9 or more reinforcements, it loses all its reinforcements. Then you create a Kraken token, which is an 8/8 hexproof. So this is another great card you can use to get some damage on the board. I think it's also important to have more than one creature option. You can also make the dragon with the second loyalty ability, but in case your opponent has a positional disabler like Dungeon Geist, or another like enchantment that disables the first slot, this is good to have. So yeah, and then Karn I like a lot here because, Sarkin Broken I like a lot here just because it has the last ability to fetch 3 creatures with power 6 or more and then give them haste. Allows you to have a hasted Kefnet that you can use to start attacking if you need, and just another way to fetch him. Can also draw and increase your mana bonuses and make a dragon if you need it. But with +3 mana bonuses to all the rub colors, we are in pretty good shape to have a pretty solid deck. So let's go ahead and give this deck a play in Training Grounds. Let's see, we're going up against, a new Narset deck. This is cool. I don't have Narset yet, so I'm excited to play against it and get a feeling on it. I think Narset's ultimate ability has something where if you cycle cards, you get to deal 4 damage to targets up to 4 times or something. So excited when I have Narset to play around with her in some cycling-based decks as well. But again, the plan here is basically just to cycle, if possible, into Gather the Pack as soon as possible, so we can then get a Kefnet to hand, exile, then have 1 reinforced 4 times. Also, if we just get a Kefnet at hard cast it, that can also work as well. So let's see. This might actually be a hard cast Boon of the Wishgivers early in order to try to just try to dig for something else, which is pretty cool. I haven't done that a lot, but we could get a green in the 3rd column. We could get a green match and then drop that down into blue match, potentially another blue match and loyalty match on top. That seems pretty solid, and that would allow us just to cast our Boon of the Wishgiver. I think that's going to be better than cycling for now, I think. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and try that. Great, and we did draw into a Kefnet, so that's great. Alright, so we do have enough to cycle 1 card, so I might as well just do that, see what we get into. Oh great, and we drew into a Gather the Pack. That is fantastic. So let's see. So we're going to want to Gather the Pack and then another slot in our hand. So I'm trying to figure out of these which I want to keep. I don't think I need 2 stitches. So let's just go ahead. We can do a Gather the Pack with there's 4 green mana in the 3rd column, which could drop into either a red or a blue match as well, which is pretty solid. And yeah, I think that's gonna be where we want to go. So let's go ahead and grab that. Some blue, perfect. Alright, so this is a pretty solid setup we have here. So we are on our 3rd turn, which is awesome. So this is the trick that we're going to do. We're going to exile a God Eternal Kefnet from our hand because we have multiple copies of Kefnet in the graveyard. So go ahead and do that. And now we get a reinforced copy. So that's pretty sweet. Now we do have some extra mana, So we can start cycling away. We're going to start with our cycling 2 to use a little less mana, and then if we draw into a spell, which we did, we'll also get a copy of it with some additional mana. So that's great. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start using the mana first off of the Stitch in Time. Now note we have 6 cards in hand, so we'll need to exile one of our non-cycling cards. I'm going to do the one without mana right now. You notice when we cycled or exiled that Kefnet, we did not get reinforced copies because we did not have a stack that we could in the graveyard. We did not have enough to trigger its ability. So great, we did have another spell there. So what we're going to do actually, I think, is just go ahead and exile some of these more expensive cards here just to get to being able to get rid of the Stitch in hand. I don't want to waste any of that mana. Great, now that we have no mana left on the Stitch, we're going to exile it from our hand. That way when we exile down a card down to 4, we'll be able to get 5 and then make a copy if we need it. Again, we're going to start to exile our cards that have cycling 2 first. Oops, I didn't realize I didn't have enough mana for that, so I actually wasted a card, but I needed to get down to 4 anyway, because if I draw a spell, I want to be able to this is interesting. So this Luminous Broodmoth is a really cool card. When a creature you control without flying dies, return it to the battlefield with flying. This guy does have flying, but what I can do actually, if I want to, is just kill it with our Gopher Blood and fight it. I'm not sure if I really need to do that now, so I think I'd rather save mana so I can continue to cycle some other things, but that's just good to keep in mind that we could remove it if we want to. So let's see, we've got a green match, which is going to give us 6 mana, which is nice. I don't think I see anything that's better than that, so we'll just go ahead and take that for now. Should go ahead and look at Narset's abilities too, because I don't know. So it's got similar sorts of things, but Jeskai color +3, and then the -2 on the off colors from that wedge. So its first ability is gain some life and then have some conversion activated gems. Then discard a card, draw 3, and then if the discarded card is a spell, we can deal damage to an opposing creature. Then this Great Ancient Way is the thing that has to do with cycling. So it'll give any cards cycling 4 that don't already have cycling. And then whenever you cycle a non-creature card, deal damage 4 damage to opposing target and go up to 4 times. Yeah, that's a solid card. I'm looking forward to, once this is finally on sale for crystals, using that up. So, alright, so we're going to do our cycling 2 cards here. And then we'll see if we can draw into a Serum Powder to let us do our cool tricks that we want to do. I'm going to go ahead and try to draw off cards that can get down to 0 mana first, just because if I can, great. And here's our Serum Powder. So we get to do the trick where we act, and that was why I wanted to kind of get cards down to 0, just because they 0 mana, just because then that way if we draw into that Serum Powder, we are able to wheel them away and draw into cards with half mana. So again, we are getting down to 5 cards before we continue cycling stuff. We're actually down to only 1 card with cycling. We drew into a large amount of cards without cycling, which is kind of interesting. But good, there's another cycler. So we are just burning some of this mana, I think, to try to draw into other cards that have more mana. Not sure if that's exactly right, but it's what I'm doing. Great, there's a serum powder. And then when we get to a situation where we serum powder into a serum powder into a stitch in time, then we can start accruing some extra turns, and then we might be able to cast some of these gather the packs to make our Kefnets even bigger. Actually, I should just be taking mana probably off of these gather the packs instead if they're in our hand. So might have been a punt not to do that earlier. Just going to get rid of this stitch here so we can draw into more cards that can get some mana. Great, and here's the trick I was talking about. So we have a stitch, and also on the board we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 blue mana. So we're actually going to get the extra swap bonuses that you can get off of stitches. But you'll notice we had one stitch because of the serum powder that was drawn with half mana, and then we got a copy of it that got half mana with Kefnet, so it got full mana, which is awesome. So with the blue mana that we have, we're going to be able to get 2 swaps off of these stitches. So actually what I'm going to do here, and this actually works out perfectly, because I'm going to get 6 mana off of a green swap. I want to again keep at least 10 blues on the board, so I get a double 2 swaps for each of these things, but I'll be able to cast both stitches and then the gather in the pack. So let's go ahead and do that now. So here we go here, and great. So now we'll notice that we have more Kefnets in the graveyard. So what we will be able to do is exile this Kefnet and do the reinforcement trick again. So our Kefnet's getting really big. And then if we look here, we see we have 4 extra swaps, which is wonderful. So that gives us a lot of leeway to probably just win this turn. Because if we start to run out of things to do, we can just cast one of these boons and then draw back up to 4 cards, and then have, or just, if we run out of mana, just do a match and grab some mana. So again, we're just going to keep cycling through now that we have extra swaps. What one could eventually do is, and if we had a Ominous Seas, we could put that on the board as we go to start making some tokens. But I think actually, since we have extra swaps, we should just be able to win this turn by eventually, with our extra swaps, getting enough loyalty to activate Sarkhan Unbroken's ultimate ability to just swing through. And I think actually we had the Kefnet on the board. No, we got the Kefnet on the board this turn, I think, by exiling. So actually the ability to swing with haste actually should let us win a turn earlier, I think. I don't remember exactly where we were with cards in hand or not, but that is good to know. And part of the reason why I chose Sarkhan as the Planeswalker, because Lars and I were talking a little bit, and we realized that haste, while not super vital, since you can swing, it actually in some situations will let you win a turn earlier. And with this Gather the Pack build, where you might set it up one turn and then get all the Kefnets into play that turn, or the first ones into play that turn, and then continue cycling, it does allow you to win that turn, which is pretty cool. Another thing that I noticed when playtesting is with the Gather the Packs, if you have an extra gather and just some extra Kefnets in the graveyard that we're planning on reinforcing next turn, if your opponent does kill your Kefnet, that will actually trigger its when it is exiled or dies. So then you'll just get a new stack of Kefnets on the board when your opponent tries to kill it. So it is a little damage resilient too, which is pretty cool. Just all around pretty solid. All right, so we're starting to get a little low on mana here. So we might end up having to do this boon trick that I was talking about, which is perfect because I get to show you how we want to do everything. So what we're going to do, we're going to exile down to everything except the boon in hand. And we did have, I believe, 3 extra swaps now. So what we're going to do is look for matches that can get us up to 8 mana. See how much loyalty we're at, just out of curiosity. We're at 9, so we have to get up to 21 to get haste. So it's going to take a couple extra swaps. But the plan is that we're going to cast boon, have a couple extra swaps, and then get into some more stitching times that we get into play off Serum Powder, and we'll get a cast. We'll get 1.5 worth of mana for Serum Powders to be able to go through. So I think what I'm going to do here is probably take this green match because I'd like to keep the blue matches on the board if possible. If you can get in a board state like this, it does make it much easier to continue looping with the stitches. If you can have the 10 or more red or 10 or more blue claws in to grab extra swaps. So I think the green match is going to be the best thing that we can do at the moment. So we have 3 extra swaps here, which is good. And we only need 2 mana for the boon, so we could maybe take this black swap, or I can even take, well, I think what I want to actually do is, let's see how many blue we have now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, we actually have 13 blue. So what I could do is take the 3 white and 3 loyalty, so I get closer to Brokhan's ultimate. And then that would also give us 3 blue and then 4 black. So I think this should get us closer to the ultimate. And just save us a little bit of time here. But great, so we drew into some more cards with mana for Stitch, and we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and actually 11 blue mana. So we still are able, if we have, if we draw into Stitches off the Serum Powders, to be able to cast them and get 2 swaps off of each of them, which is wonderful. Let's go ahead. Great, we're starting to net some more mana, which is awesome. Great, there's our Serum Powder. Wonderful. Come on, Stitches. Yeah, great. So we got some more extra turns built up, which is wonderful. Actually, I don't know if it matters too much here. So let's see, we've got some red matches that we can take red matches into loyalty, which should be wonderful. That might even get us, yeah, and that will get us up to the ultimate, which is awesome. Oops, so let's see. Great, there were some blue matches, so now we don't have enough blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but we have enough red now as externality, which is kind of cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 red. Great. So we actually have Sarkhan's ultimate, which we can use to get 3 creatures. So what we're going to want to do is wait until we can get down to 3 cards in hand to use that ability to cast them, and then have 3 other cycling cards ready to continue cycling. But when we're keeping into account our power of Kefnet, we'll know that we're going to have 18 more power worth of Kefnets that we can add to this to give these guys hastiness, which is awesome. So let's see. So we're going to keep cycling stuff away here. Let's see how many extra swaps that got us up to. Did that get us up to 7 extra swaps now? 6 extra swaps. Great. So if you're careful and patient, I love Stitch in this just because it can allow us to get a lot of extra swaps, which is awesome. And then basically make it so you're just playing a game against yourself at that point. So again, we're going to keep a boon in hand in case we do run out of mana, so we have something that we can easily use to refill our hand, because at this point with the extra swaps, the only way we lose is if we screw up in terms of the sorts of cards in hand that are going to keep us from continuing cycling. Great, there's a serum powder. Get rid of the Stitch. Great, so there's a Gather the Pack. This may be a little premature, but since we have extra swaps, I think what I'm going to start to do soon is probably just exile, well, not exile, but just start to cast some of these Gather the Packs. And if I'm able to do it in a way where I can also cast a Stitch at the same time, that would be pretty awesome. So let's see. I think what I want to do is actually get rid of the serum powder first, because if I'm going to go down in cards in hand, I want to make sure I have as many other cards with cycling in hand as possible. So I think because of that, I get rid of this extra Stitch that we have here. It's, again, I'm still learning how to play this deck, but to me it makes sense to maximize the number of cycling cards that you have in hand before you go off. That way, in case if you only have like 2 cycling cards left in hand and you cycle them away and then draw into non-cyclers, you want to give yourself the greatest, you're kind of in big trouble then, to you in the loop, unless you have a boon in hand. So you want to give yourself the max chance, I think, of hitting the right sorts of cards to increase your chance of being able to continue the loop, drawing out of a couple bad cycles into non-cycling cards. So we have 4 cyclers in hand now. So I think that's going to be sufficient to just go ahead and cast these cards. I think I'll cast the Stitch first, maybe. I don't think it really matters too much. But we've got a green match, which is pretty solid. That could give us get us into a black match or a blue match as well, which is nice. So I think we'll just do this for the extra swap first. And now we're down to 5 cards, so before making another match for the Gather the Pack, we're going to go ahead and cycle cards away. don't have a ton of mana left in hand, but we will go ahead and let's go ahead and get this gather the pack here. So again, we want to keep enough red gems on the board. So I think what I'm going to do is make some blue gem matches to give us a little extra mana, and then maybe get a black gem match as well. Great, so 7 swaps. We have the Kefnet in, and then Kefnet's in our graveyard. So we'll go ahead and do the trick to reinforce 3 Kefnets here. Great, so we should only have to do this, looks like actually 2 more times, if I do the math correctly. And then we can use Sarkhan's ultimate ability. But got some more mana to cycle, so we're going to go ahead and keep on cycling. Again, focusing on the cycling 2 cards first, just because they use less mana to cycle. Get rid of the gather the pack so we can draw into and have space to make a copied one. Boon is perfect because it gives us a lot of mana. I don't have Channeled Force. I didn't talk about this in the video. If I had Channeled Force, I would likely run it in this deck, just because the more expensive spells that you have, the more mana can get put on them when you get the copy with half mana from Kefnet. I just don't have Cycled Force yet. All right, so we're about to run out of mana here, and since we did run out of mana, again, we have Boon of the Wishgivers in hand, so we're just going to cast one of those, and then refill our hand and get hopefully some more mana on those cards to continue cycling. So we'll go ahead and just take this blue match again, since again we want to keep the red matches. I have 6 swaps left still, so that's fine. I need 3 more mana. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 red mana. So what I can do is take a 3 red and use that to cast Boon, and then we should still be okay to have 10 or more red gems, so we can get 2 swaps off of these stitches. So of these, not sure what is the best and makes the most sense here. So I think I'll do one that takes both loyalty and red gems. There we go. Great. Perfect. Went 3 for 3. So got a lot of good mana for cycling stuff, which is awesome. We actually might have preferred a card that had non-cycling in our hand, but we got Serum Powder, which is so great. You start to worry, like, maybe I'm starting to run out of mana, but eventually you draw into Serum Powders, and then it just recharges your mana like crazy. It's awesome. Come on, Stitch. Should have been more careful how I wished for it. Still take it, though. So I think what we'll actually do, since we have enough swaps, is we will just cast the Stitch to get 2 extra turns, though it's going to take 2 turns to do it, it looks like. Still think I'm okay with that, though. Then we'll just take the blue match. There we go, 5 swaps. Get rid of the gather. And again, we could force the gathers, but you want to be patient with this deck. If you're patient, you'll eventually get into those Serum Powder draws, which will net you free stitches and free gather the packs. So while this is taking a long time, we're gonna play this for the long game. At this point, we're actually going to get rid of a cycling 3 card, since we don't care about the extra mana as much. Alright, so we're getting low on cycling cards again, so again we're going to leave the boon in our hand, even though we're using a little extra mana off of this one, just because we want to make sure that we keep the boon in hand so we can draw back up to recharge our hand if we do run out of cycling cards. Let's see what we can do here on our next matches as well. So we've got some black matches that we could take. They might be the best. So let's see. We need to cast the boon eventually. So just go ahead and take a black match for now. And actually what we probably want to do is get the stitches cast first, so we can get 2 extra swaps. Then if we need to use the red matches afterwards to cast the gathers, we'll have enough mana to do that. So I think that's what we're going to do. And then maybe I can get, I don't really need another loyalty match, but if I do get a red match here, I'll just take that. So we have 4 swaps. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 red. So actually, if we just do a 3 red match, we should still get our 2 swaps off of it. Yep, that's great. We'll do the Kefnet trick. And actually what I should have done, just in case I got a weird cascade there, is disabled my second Gather the Pack. Because if you cast 2 Gather the Packs, you'll put a whole bunch of Kefnets into the graveyard. And with that, when you exile 1, all the other copies would go away. So you'd rather do them separately. So we'll get this Kefnet and the reinforcements from it. And then we will cast this Gather the Pack now, in order to get our additional copies that we need. So I think we're kind of in the home stretch here, so I'm just not going to worry about keeping enough other Kefnets on the board. So what we'll do, we'll exile 1. Now we get copies. Now we can activate the ultimate of Sarkhan. Get 3 copies that will now have haste. So we'll add another 18 damage to the board. That'll be 138 damage. We'll be able to swing for 138 damage, which is awesome. And go forever. I just don't remember what turn this actually was that we got this kill on, but it was, you see, it just took a while. This is a turn 4 kill, so this is pretty great. So turn 4 versus turn 5, because we're using Brokhan and are going to be able to swing with the Kefnet this turn, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so go ahead. Cast these. If I counted the mana better, I might have actually been able to, we're just running up the score at this point, but I might have actually been able to cast a Gather after to have a backup thing in hand. But yeah, we were able to redraw, so in case anything goes bad or weird, we have it. But now we just get to attack with a 300 or 138 power Kefnet for the win, which is pretty sweet. Thanks again, Lars, for finding the fantastic idea of Gather the Pack to combine with Kefnet in the Serum Powder package. It just works really well. He also found a really cool version with Forge and artifacts stuff like Alhamrit's Archive and Folio, which is another pretty cool thing. But this Brokhan version is with Kefnet. I'm liking a lot. So hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry it was a little long and rambly, but you got to see a lot of the process here, that if you're patient, you can get those extra swaps and the gather the packs to reinforce it, and then eventually use Sarkhan's ultimate to win the turn that you started attacking. All right, take care, everyone.